Hey, this is Calvin, founder of Sku.io, and I'm going to go through a 15-minute product demo of Sku. So, what is Sku? Basically, you run your e-commerce operations and store data in one place so that you can optimize and automate your everyday workflows. It's an incredibly powerful concept of having all your data in one place. It just leads to so many possibilities, and there's very few systems that run from that philosophy. But if you do that, then you can really manage your business by exception. And Sku takes the role of the single source of truth of a lot of your data points, such as product data, sales orders, purchasing, and inventory. And essentially, if any of you are familiar with ERP, Sku is like an e-commerce first ERP. So I'm going to go take a look at Sku and just touch on a few points. Something that is prevalent throughout all of Sku is these data tables. And this is just a way for you to filter, sort, change columns, do some right-click handling if you want. Something that we thought is why not make right-click functionality in the data table. So if you just want to show matching records, for example, you could do that. It automatically adds a filter. We have a ton of fields that you could filter by, all the product data, product attributes. This is the product example, and as well as all the operands that are custom depending on the data type. So essentially, point is you have a lot of control over your data, and you can save favorite views if you want. Save view one, and those will appear up top, or the non-favorite ones. All of them will be searchable in this section here. So full control over your data, different views for different roles within your company. And let's take a look at a typical product. So you open a product, we're a very metrics-based platform. So we want you to see a dashboard of what the numbers are when you open a product and start to deal with it. We also have inventory description, different warehouses, different statuses, a few different widgets here that are all helpful and all oriented towards different performance and actions you can take with your product. For example, you could create a sales order directly from here for that product. It automatically adds one quantity, and there's a lot of linkability between every element. So if you're in a product, you want to go to a warehouse, you go there, you go back, you could go even warehouse. If this one had other elements, it just continues to carry on in the linkability. So full audit trail of everything that happens with your product so you could know when things go wrong or try to figure that out. And then of course we have listings, which I don't think this has any, but we'll go over that in another section and show what it looks like. Uh, Product editability, you have your basic e-commerce fields, which are the majority of the fields up here. Then you have pricing tiers, as many as you need. You may have one, for example, for Amazon as a sales channel. You may have one just MSRP. You may have one that's MAP. Supply side, you can have as many suppliers as you need. You can have as many supplier pricing tiers as you need, so that if your suppliers have different pricing levels, you can store that and use them in POs if needed, as well as overrides on product level for forecasting. Images, you could manage your images here, as well as any taxonomy you need, and as many attributes as you need, which are all configurable in settings. So I want to go over a sample of a manual sales order. So I'm actually going to go on our dev site for that, which has more data, and I'll load a typical situation here. So if I'm creating a manual sales order, let's say I pick anti-gravity batteries. Oh, sorry, this is a sales order. So I'm going to pick customer. All right, so pick the customer, and something we do that's unique is you could add a typical product multiple times for each fulfillment scenario. So let's say I pick this, and okay, right now it's just in stock in one of our warehouses, but if I want to show warehouses where there's zero available, I can do that as well, and just shows this many more. So I'm going to add it a few times. Let me click it again and again. So first one quantity is going to be from our warehouse. Second is going to be from the Amazon fulfillment network, which is kind of a warehouse as well. Third is going to be from dropship supplier. And you can see how that works. It separates them based on the fulfillment strategy, such that when you go to fulfill, it depends on the workflow of the warehouse. This one, for example, will go to Star Ship It or ShipStation, or be manually fulfilled because it's our own warehouse. We control it. This one will connect to the API of Amazon, and you would be able to ship from Amazon's warehouse network to your eBay customer or Shopify customer, whatever it may be. Choose a listing in case there's multiple listings per SKU. You can choose which one it actually uses. And finally, dropship will essentially create a purchase order that's connected to the sales order that automatically gets submitted potentially to the supplier. And we try to automate wherever possible. It's all configurable in settings. For example, if I wanted to turn that automation on, I'd go to the supplier dashboard, which was easily findable, easily clickable, and turn on automate dropship fulfillment. So a lot of flexibility with all that. So wanted to also talk about purchasing. So if I go to purchase orders here, so for forecasting, we do this at this point on a per purchase order level. So if I know that I need to purchase from anti-gravity batteries, right, the example I just used, and I want to build a PO based on certain assumptions. If I do a lot of back orders, it may be something as simple as, oh, I want to create target quantity of 0, which means all the negative inventory as a result of back orders can be ordered, but I don't have any back orders for that supplier. So let me pick a typical situation, which is, let's say I want to look at the last 180 days of sales history, and based on that history, I want 90 days of stock. Then there's other configurable things such as lead time. Do I want to consider lead time, which would basically bump up the target days of stock? Would I want to use minimum order quantity, which would account for that in the numbers? Do I want to filter the sales order history for the calculation? Do I want to filter the product selection for the PO? All those possibilities, build the PO. So there's only one item that qualifies based on this, but you can see that we have a calculation icon here, and this will not give you any mystery as to how it calculated what to purchase. It tells you the exact calculation so that you can know what is going on, and you can change assumptions if you need it. So let's say I like this. I would save the PO, submit it to the supplier. Well, approve it first, then submit it. This is being submitted in email PDF attachment. So that actually in the background just sent a PDF with a purchase order, which we use Mailchimp for. So if I log into our Mailchimp, you see that we have this PO that was automatically generated and has the relevant info automatically submitted to the supplier. You can have your own branding as needed, which are all configurable in settings. If you, for some reason, the supplier had other ways of submitting, you could configure that. You could change it on the PO side. You could change it on the default for the supplier side, same place where we turn on the automation. We could look at, for example, purchase order format could be email PDF and CSV attachment. So that way it sends both like a CSV of the line items as well as the PDF. We'll probably be adding more potential connections, whether it's API or FTP in the future, but for now, that's what we have. And that's a good overview of kind of how purchasing works. There's also the receiving aspect of it. So the receiving aspect, you would just receive items manually like this or through barcode. And if you scan here, it automatically will do a sound alert if it's an unknown item, or if it's an item that is in the database but not supposed to be on this PO, it will tell you, and we manage those exceptions when we actually finish the receiving. Next, I wanted to quickly go over how we connect to sales channels. So if I look at, let's say, a sales channel here, this is a Shopify sales channel. And when you set up a sales channel connection, your first task is you want to map the listings. You want to map the products on the sales channel to your SKU products. Now, in a perfect world, your database would exist in Sku. You would create it from, let's say if you were reporting from a Google Sheets scenario or a database, you would import it via CSV to Sku. And then the exercise here would be mapping the Shopify products to Sku products. That's not always the case. I found that a lot of times sellers have their master data in the sales channels directly. So you have flexibility for these unmapped listings that you have to deal with. Do you want to link them? In which case, probably the fastest way would be to download the mappings and then upload them, or you could do it individually. Or if you want to use the Shopify data, for example, to create Sku products, you could create Sku products from that data. And on the left, you'll see here's the data points from Shopify. And on the right, you could associate them to the Sku fields, and that would actually create the products on the fly. Another thing to note about the sales channel connection, inventory-wise, almost always Sku is a master of stock, and you can set that here, make the warehouses that you want to add to get to the actual figure that goes to Shopify. You could set some rules that have buffer stocks or scarcity if you want to do a minimum rule, for example. There's a lot of flexibility in manipulating the actual inventory level based on your needs. Pricing, you'll typically either do neither or have Sku the master of pricing. In case that you wanted to manage all the pricing from Sku, it would push up to the sales channels, but neither is usually fine. It just depends on your needs. We also have the ability to automatically create listings. If you wanted to automatically create products. If you always want to add your products in Shopify first, for example, Sku would automatically create the Sku products based on the last mapped fields. So, the automation will continue to be improved as we go along, but there's a lot already there. So aside from that aspect of sales channels, there's also just miscellaneous things and settings that you set up when you first start. I don't think I'll go into all of these, but one of the things that was relevant from earlier is attributes. This is where you set up the attribute. You can set, let's say, color test. Well, the color, but I'll just say color Calvin test, and this could be a string. It could have a grouping if you want. You could have options like red, blue, black. You could allow the user to select multiple. You could allow it single. You could allow custom value if you want to have them pick values not just from this list. You even do validation here of the character limit. So a lot of flexibility, and those will just appear on the product page under attributes once you associate the attribute to associate the attribute to the product. So that's how that works. Then just to talk a little bit about inventory, this is where some of the other functionality lays. We have a backorder queue that manages the backorder situation for sales orders that are essentially out of stock. You could reprioritize by drag and dropping some here, and that will determine what gets released when inventory does come into the system. And a lot of cool features here, like copying it and pasting it elsewhere, or whatever you need to do here. So we even show the coverages. If a sales order happens to be covered by an incoming PO, you could have that here. And at some point, we're going to be even utilizing the ETA of the PO to have that show up on the sales order screen. So you could be able to quickly tell your customers when the goods are expected to arrive. We have sales credits, which are basically returns. Warehouse transfers are pretty self-explanatory. Inventory assemblies, if you need to create bundles or disassemble those bundles. Stock takes as needed. Inventory adjustments as needed. Complete inventory audit trail. The other one that was showed earlier was filtered by product. This one is filtered by whatever you need to do in order to do your investigation. And we just have some forecasting of telling you what you need to order, independent of creating it from the purchase order. It will just tell you what you don't know. And then FIFO layers is how we calculate COGS, cost of goods sold. And it's basically first in, first out methodology. And you can even peer into a layer and see, that was the product. Peer into a layer and see what created this FIFO layer in the first place, what the cost was, which calculates to the unit cost, and then what, if any, events have used that layer up to this point. So that's a good overview. Definitely book a demo if you wanted to dive deeper, but wanted to give a brief look at the generalities so that you can then ask questions about specifics that may be relevant. Thank you.